Hello everyone, and welcome to another holiday edition of Live Like a Pioneer. Today we are going to be making shortbread, which I really enjoy, particularly when you have things like dried cranberries and nuts and all of those kinds of extras in there. We're going to do a little bit more traditional recipe, very basic. We are going to use 2.5 cups of flour, which is in here, 3/4 cups of sugar. Now you might be thinking, Allison, did the Pioneers have lots of sugar? And they really didn't, especially white sugar like we're using here. Most of the time, sugar would have been maple sugar, so I have a maple tap here. They would have used maple sugar. They would have used other types of sweeteners like honey instead, but shortbread, white sugar is a must. And then a whole cup of butter. Now I've bought this butter, but obviously the early settlers would have had to churn it. So I have a butter churn here for that. And your butter churn, what you would do is first you would go to your cow, get some milk, and then you would let it separate. And then you would take the cream and you would churn your butter. It would take a very long time. It could take up to 3 hours to churn your butter. Humidity, temperature, all of those things play a big part in that. Once you've churned it, you'd have to take it out, get the lumps out, wash it, all of this whole process. So I'm very glad that I was able to go buy mine from the store. So first step, now that I have my 2.5 cups of flour, is I have to sift in my 3/4 cups of sugar. Now sugar, as I mentioned, wasn't often used because it was very expensive, partly because it came from so far away, especially refined white sugar. So if you were living in about 1812 in northern parts of Ontario, so like where I'm from in Sault Ste. Marie, you would have to get your sugar from voyageurs, and it would come in cones. It would be around about this large on the bottom, and about the size of the toonie on the top, about this tall. It would be about the equivalent of $200 today. Very, very expensive. So it was definitely a luxury that people did not use lightly. So a lot of the time, things, as I say, brown sugars, but more importantly, maple sugars, honey, apples, other types of fruit would have been used to help sweeten things instead. But around the holidays, you can let yourself indulge a little bit and have a little bit of excess. So I have mixed together my flour and my sugar. Now I need to cut in my butter. So I'm going to cut this in little pieces and mix this thoroughly. You are supposed to use chilled butter, which would have not necessarily been the easiest to have, so probably would have left your butter outside for a while. And as I do this, friends, as you'll notice, I am using my hands. It just makes it easier. Every good pioneer would have used their hands to do their baking. As we know, pioneers did not have measuring cups or measuring spoons very often, so everything was done either by eye or using reference points on their utensils and their bowls and their cups and things like that. So while I do this, sit back, relax, and we'll speed through this part for you so you don't have to watch me for so long. See you on the other side. So friends, I have cut up all my butter into my mixture here. I've been cutting it in using my only semi-modern kitchen equipment. These were very popular by the late 1800s. Just made making dough and things a lot easier. But as all good pioneers know, you gotta get your hands dirty. So now that most of this is incorporated, we're gonna do the last little bit with my hands. So knock that off, get the last little bit of butter off of here, and we'll start with our hands. Now, I am not one to necessarily follow a recipe always, so I am going to add a little bit of a secret ingredient by request of those who might get to enjoy this a little bit later. So I am going to add just the tiniest bit of vanilla. I am going to put in about a teaspoon. You'll notice that, we're going to go with a tablespoon. You'll notice that I use my hands, and that is your Pioneer measuring tools. So, vanilla here. I didn't have any of that. Pioneer measuring tools, you all have them. A little divot in the middle of your hand, that is a teaspoon. If you fill up more of the rounded section of your hand, that's about a tablespoon. So, next time you're in need, you don't have either of those around, you could always just try using your hands. Just make sure that you wash them thoroughly beforehand, just like I did. So you're gonna incorporate your butter into your flour and sugar mixture. And as we all know, flour, sugar, butter, only thing that could really make this better is eggs, but hey, that's not what this calls for. So it's gonna be something rather delicious. You are waiting to get your dough, I guess, to be sort of a crumbly mixture. So you don't want to go too far along in the process. So I'm going to keep working on incorporating this, and again, we'll see you on this other side of that. Well, it seems to be combining pretty well, so we're gonna get ready for the next step here. For early settler times, you probably would have made your shortbread in a bake oven of some kind, which I have right here. These ones have legs on the bottom so that you could get coals from your hearth, put them right on top of your mantle, probably a brick mantle, or hearthstone, not your mantle, your hearthstone. Put down the coals there, cover it with a layer of ash to insulate those, keep them hot, and then also prevent your baking from getting burnt. Then your lid would go on top. It has a rim, as you can kind of see here. You would then put coals on top of the lid, cover it with another layer of ash, and then it would bake just like the two sides of the elements in your oven today. Another way to do that would be to use a baking pan, like I'm going to use, once you are able to get one of those, and putting that in a bake oven where you would have had to light a fire hours and hours beforehand, probably about 3 hours. And if it was stone, the heat from the fire would heat up the stones, and then you would pull out all of the fire and the coals, pop your baking in, put a lid on it to keep the heat inside, and then let it bake away in there. Today we are going to use our modern oven, so a little bit less exciting, but this time of the year we are shutting down our buildings, so no wood fires and wood stoves are accessible to me at the moment, so I guess we're just gonna have to use our trusty kitchen stove. So I'm going to pop this mixture into my baking pan here. Being that the majority of this recipe is butter, you don't really need to grease this pan all that much. So you just put this down inside, squish it down. It's a nice little layer. I'm just shaking out as I go so I don't make a complete mess of this table, since Morgan, our education coordinator, is using it for other programming as well, so I don't want to make a complete mess of her workspace. She would not be very happy with me. So let's put this down in here as much as we can. Pack it all in, nice and firm. Not too much left in this bowl now, so this was just the right good size for this pan. We'll dump some out. The rest down. And then you are going to bake it. So Pioneers, luckily for us, our modern stove has a temperature gauge, but they did not have that. So some of you may know this trick already. What they would have done is to test the heat of their bake oven, the ones that are in walls, or their wood stove until they had a thermometer, which became rather luxurious if you were able to get one of those in your range stove. You would open the door, put your hand in, and if you just kept it there, and you could only keep it there for about 5 seconds, you knew your stove was about ready for baking. I don't need to do that today, and neither will you. So you want to preheat your oven to 325 degrees. Then you can stick your shortbread cookies in there for about 25 minutes or so until they are golden. Don't let them get brown, just golden, and then you can enjoy. So I'm gonna go do that, and I'll show you the end result when they're done cooking. We'll see you soon. Welcome back, everyone. Our shortbread cookies are done. Of course, this is not quite exact timing. Ours are fairly thick, so it did take a lot longer than the 25 minutes. It took closer to about 40 minutes or so. But as you can see, I did cut out a little piece to make sure it was all done, but it turned out pretty well. It's still a little crumbly around the edges, but the bottom is golden. There's gold around the edges, so just perfect. Now, remember, when you are making this at home, you can do this as actual cookies, and that will decrease the amount of time that it takes, but it's all just will depend on your oven, how thick, and the size of your pan, and all of those different factors. So keep an eye on your shortbread cookies. I'm gonna go take this, make myself a cup of tea, and enjoy some shortbread cookies. So I hope you all are able to do the same, and we'll see you very soon for another edition of Live Like a Pioneer. Bye.